How's everybody doing this morning? I'm curious, how many of you had coffee in order to be able to say good? Some of you, yeah. I tend to wake up a little slowly and need a little caffeine to help in the process. My wife wakes up, boom, just like that. She's wide awake. So there's a certain proverb that applies to our relationship, which I won't quote here. But if you're familiar with it, you know that happy people, first thing in the morning when they're wide awake, can be a source of annoyance to people who are not so happy when they wake up first thing in the morning, and has some relational collateral opportunities. Let's just put it that way. So our session here today, get a grip on your business. Get a grip on your business. 6 keys to getting what you want from your entrepreneurial company. And to be clear, kind of an introduction, you've got a handout in front of you. And in the world of EOS, so let me just do a brief introduction. I run a company called Backyard Leasing with the Ulrich family of companies. I'm still an owner, partner in manufacturing and the retail side of the industry and the rent-to-own industry, but I run a rent-to-own company. Okay, I'm diminishing my time there, spending more time in business coaching and EOS implementation for companies. So that's really my focus going forward. I've found that it's my passion, okay? And you'll see a little bit of that come through today, and hopefully you'll understand why. I also want to be clear, EOS is a branded operating system. Okay, what I give you today is the resource to understand the operating system. We're going to do a quick walkthrough. I'll tell you right up front, we've got books outside. They're free to take. Only 1 in 10 companies that run on EOS actually use an implementer like myself to implement it. 9 out of 10 self-implement with the resources I'm going to give you today. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why maybe not EOS is right for you, but why you must be intentional about having an operating system for your company that you design and embrace intentionally rather than one that just kind of happens. Because every single company has an operating system, and most of them are junk, okay? And I think I'm safe in saying I know that because I've seen a lot of businesses running, and I've run a couple myself, and they all had an operating system, and most of them were junk, okay? So they have to be developed, matured to actually serve your business purposes. Otherwise, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs these days, they're just like the business has me by the tail, and I am at the beck and call of my company. And that's not why most people started their companies. They wanted something different, but they've lost control. So we're going to talk through how to get what you want from your business and hopefully give you some hope that that is actually possible. Okay, the agenda here, 3 simple points, get real. You're going to have to be honest with yourself and with me here today if you're going to derive any value from this talk. And then we do need to keep it simple because complexity really drains the energy out of most processes. So we have to keep things simple in order to be impactful in our businesses. And then finally, I think we all want results. We're not in business to fail. We're not in business to not get results. We want results from our business. And the journey from being an entrepreneur, kind of a startup in the business world, to becoming a business that actually runs like a healthy organization, it is a difficult journey. One of my coaching clients, 30 employees, he's in our industry, and I asked somebody in the office, I don't think he gave me the straight up answer. Okay, so I went and asked somebody in his office, how often do the people in the company come to him for a solution to a problem they have? Okay, and she said, every week, every single person in the company talks to them to get a solution. Shouldn't surprise you that when I had dinner with him and his wife said to me, if you can help get my husband back, I'd be very happy. Okay, and that's one of the number one things I hear in my coaching world. When I meet with the entrepreneur, sit down with their spouse for dinner, the spouse will say, I'd like my spouse back. Somehow they've lost, they married the business, and the commitment is tied up there. Okay, I'm just telling you, this is a normative process. So hopefully, most of you don't identify with that. The statistics I hear are otherwise. Okay, and I'm just telling you, it doesn't have to be that way. Many people in small businesses in America today have given up on life, on the life they want, in hopes of having it sometime in the future. Once I get my business to a certain place and it achieves certain goals, most of those people never get there. Many have given up. Business has them by the tail. They started out with a very simple plan, but the complexity keeps growing, keeps growing, keeps growing, and you must create structures and systems to manage the complexity. Results are possible. People actually build, listen, in America today, people actually build and lead successful companies without sacrificing their health, their marriages, and their families. There are people who are doing this. And I want to introduce you to one system to help you achieve that. So let's just talk to this group here specifically this morning. And if you're in the back and want a seat, just come right on up. There are plenty of prime seats up here. How many of you are an owner in the business you're working in? Let me just see a quick raise of hands. Okay, second, how many of you are a leader in a company, an owner and providing leadership? Raise of hands. Okay, how many of you work for the other two people? Okay. Now, quick review here of size of companies that you're in. So everybody give me a shot on this one. If your company has fewer than 10 total people involved in the company, let me see your hands. Okay, and 10 to 25. 25 to 100. Okay, and then 100 plus. Okay, let me tell you just briefly my story. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad started the business when I was 6 years old. Some of you know my story. I've written about it, I've talked about it. My dad retired in 2010 and I took over the family company. And I knew that I had to shift this little company from being a family job for myself and a few family friends to being a company. And that was my vision. I had no idea how difficult it would be given where I was starting, because I'd never done this before. Well, over the next 5 years, we experienced 350% growth. And then I hit a ceiling. And we sat there at that ceiling for about 4 years straight. Couldn't break through. Kept investing, added a few key people, kept investing, stuck right at that ceiling. Talking about frustration. Okay, now I was also the pastor. I was also board chair of 2 nonprofits, so I was playing the fool just a tad. That ceiling eventually led me into a deep burnout, extended sabbatical, and I call it my $1 million crash. Because I can show you on a balance sheet, that crash cost me $1 million. And it was not $1 million I could afford to lose. It was an extremely painful lesson. Part of the journey out, and I had built significant systems in the company. We had healthy meeting rhythms, we had KPIs, we had a lot of things going on, but there were gaps in our system that caused those pieces to live in my head. And my brain was like this spinning wheel that had to hold all this stuff together because there was no place for it to rest. And eventually, you can't handle that. Well, coming back out of burnout is when I discovered EOS. And many of the things EOS as an operating system for businesses does, we were doing, but we had significant gaps in the system, which is where these pieces were falling through the cracks and where we were not able to break through the ceiling. And so EOS became a tool that we embraced in our company, and we still run our companies today on EOS. And it's a very simple operating system for companies. I'll talk to you about that as we go forward. But I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs. And I would say this simple thing, it's absolutely possible to build a life and a business. Frustrations that business owners experience: control, and control simply the lack of it. The inability to control the business that they're responsible. Profit, again, not too much profit usually, the lack of adequate profit. People. 80% of the issues in the typical business world are people issues. Hitting the ceiling. Whether it's one leader, whether it's a department in your company hitting the ceiling, or the CEO or the entire company themselves, hitting a ceiling and not being able to break through. It's incredibly frustrating. And I want to be clear here, not every company needs to grow. But if you want to grow, and you can't grow, and you're stuck, that's not a healthy place to live. It becomes extremely, extremely frustrating. So let's keep it simple here. And here is the EOS business model, with your business at the center. Picture your business here at the center. And there are 6 key components that EOS works with and says you need to develop in each of these 6 key components in order to have a healthy, flourishing business. Each of these is critical. You can't leave one out. You don't have to run EOS to develop in these 6 key components, okay? But this is a helpful model. And strengthening these 6 key components of the business is always essential to breaking through the ceiling and growing and building the company that you want. Some say that there's only ever been 163 issues in the history of business, but they're all in one of these 6 components. The first one is the vision component, and we're going to go through quickly and then circle back around, do a little deeper dive, but we won't get very deep here today. Again, the book outside is free. Take it. You can implement EOS with the book. So just a reminder of that. Vision. Vision is simply this. Do you as a leader in the company know where you want to go with this company? Are you clear about it? And do all the people in your company know where you want to go? Is the vision clear all the way through the organization? The people. Do you have the right people for your organization that are in the right roles that you've placed them in? Absolutely essential to running a healthy company. And finally, data, or not finally, thirdly, data. Do you have measurables that allow you to assess the performance of your company at any given point in time, rather than just the knot in the stomach, the sense that something's not going well? Are you running the business by data or by emotion? Next, issues. Every company has issues. We said earlier, 163 issues in the history of business. Do you know what your issues are? Are they crystal clear? And is there a way that you can list them so that they're shared by people in the company? Next is process. Every company has a core set of processes and systems that they operate by. Does everybody do the same thing in each of those processes so that you can scale and grow consistently? Or does it all hang on the individual person? And some people do it well, and some people you're following up with customer service calls all the time. It's a process issue. Okay, and then finally, the one we all want is traction. We don't like burnouts. They're fun on the road with a great sports car, okay? Emotionally, they're not great because it means you have expended an enormous amount of energy and gone nowhere. Okay, so traction, to be able to get traction to move towards your vision is absolutely essential for personal emotional health and the success of the company. Now, let's just go back through, because vision without traction is hallucination. Okay, let that one settle in. Vision without traction is hallucination. And there are more seats up here if you want to sit down, okay? Please feel free to come in. So let's go through a bit more quickly, a bit more deeper dive, I'm sorry. On this journey, building these 6 key components in your business, in EOS we measure the progress on the journey, and we say the goal is 100% strong. Okay, getting to 100% strong in each of these 6 key components. Most companies never actually get to 100% strong. There's always opportunity to grow in one of these 6 key components. So the goal really is 80%. And a company that is 80% strong in these 6 key components is an incredibly successful company. And we do measure that progress along the way. Again, 100%, we talk about as the ultimate goal. Nobody really reaches it. 80% is an aspirational goal. But we also find that most companies, when they start this journey and they do the quick assessment, they're at about 20% strong. In other words, they're not doing well in these 6 key components. And it's often the case that in 1 or 2 of them, they're doing pretty well. But things are breaking down in other components of the company. So you've got this sheet in front of you, and I want you just to open it up quickly and have a look. And if you open it up to the inside, you'll see, you hold it the other way, the top part of the sheet is called vision. And there are 8 questions that comprise this vision, traction, organizer. EOS, we just call it the VTO. Okay, and again, many companies, and I would say most companies actually have a vision. They have answers to many of these questions, but not everybody in the company knows what they are. This is one way, one simple way to organize all that key information and get it in front of all the people in your company. It's also a form of simplified strategic planning so that you have a plan. It's not a 200-page strategic plan manual that you spend, 3 days and $40,000 to get developed. It goes into a desk drawer and nobody ever looks at it again. This is a working, functioning document that you and your team can build out over the course of a weekend and implement in your business, get clarity, and begin to get some real traction. So I want you to take that piece of paper. We're not going to have time to work on it today, but pick up the free book outside on the way out and go to work on it in your business, and you'll find it incredibly helpful. The vision page has these components to it, and the first one, and when I'm working with a company to implement EOS, as an implementer, to kind of fast track it into a company, the first thing we do is work on core values. Because the core values, the values that you as owners and the leadership team hold, that you truly hold, if you build a vision that's not flowing out of your values, the business is going to be a source of frustration to you. And it's also why you cannot just go on websites of other shed companies and find values that you love and copy them and put them on your website. It doesn't work. Okay, core values, they have to be part of a discovery process. Who are you? What really are your values? And how can you get people lined up with your values to be a part of your company? Changes the dynamics of culture. If the values are clearly articulated because they've been discovered from the core of the leaders. They're discovered, they're defined, and then you live and breathe by those values. Okay, and every company's a bit different here. And when a company finds their sweet space, they truly identify those values, they live and breathe by them, magic begins to happen inside the culture of a company. People love to go to work. They love their space, and leaders love working with their people. But they have to be discovered. The second question here is, what is your core focus? All of you have seen a tough season in business, in your job. But there's some reason why, when you know you have a really tough conversation, it's going to be a really hard day, you've got a meeting with a banker, and he's not going to like your P&L. Whatever this thing is that's coming up, what makes you get up out of bed and go at it again? Okay, what's burning in your belly that just has you go back again? Okay, you discover that, get it articulated, and you get your whole company lined up around that passion, magic begins to happen. And the energy begins to grow inside of a company. And then, of course, every passion expresses itself through some niche. For me, the company I'm currently running, that niche is backyard finance and lease solutions. Okay? We don't do it for cars. We don't do fishing boats. We don't run charter companies. We have a niche. We have a space. And we're locked in on that space. And we want to get really good at that space. By our core values, we know what our passion is. The passion is completely disconnected from the niche. The niche is how you're serving that passion, what industry you're working in. Get crystal clear about that, what the niche is. Because many entrepreneurs, guess what they do? They see all kinds of opportunities every time they get on the road and go down, every time they visit another shed company, every time they come to the Shed Expo, and they have 1,000 ideas and say, well, let's try doing this, let's doing this, and think that by adding all kinds of shiny objects, they're going to break through the next ceiling. And usually that's actually the impediment to a breakthrough. Adding shiny objects is distracting, it's bringing complexity, and you never actually gain traction. So this niche is absolutely essential to get crystal clear. Then your 10-year target. This can be 5 years, 30 years. What are you shooting at? Where do you hope to be? You're a $2 million company now. Are you hoping in 10 years to be a $50 million company or $250 million company? Changes the conversations. And I've seen leadership teams, they're sitting around the table trying to make decisions, and one guy's thinking we're going to be at 50 million 10 years from now. Another guy's thinking we're going to be at 3 million 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Their conversations just aren't lined up. They have no sense about where they're actually headed, what the goal is, what the pace is that's going to have to go, take them there, and how they're going to get there. The strategy or the tactics get all messed up because nobody knows exactly what we're shooting at. So getting this target out there is absolutely critical. What do you want from your business? 5 to 30 years out, what's your number one goal? And then what's your marketing strategy? Who are the people you're talking to? Geographic, psychographic, demographic. What makes you unique? Why should they buy from you rather than the 30 other options in your county? Okay, and you can't be all things to all people. Find your niche, get good at it, talk to the people who value what you're creating, what you're producing, and the uniques that you bring to the market, and then only spend money to get those people. If you spend money trying to get all the people on the planet, and they come and half of them are going to be disappointed, your conversion rates are going to be low, salespeople are going to be frustrated. Okay, you've got to get this marketing strategy clear. How do people work with you? Not every shed company has the same process. If they come to yours, they come to your business, what's their experience going to be? Tell them up front. Get it crystal clear. And then finally, how do you assure them that you follow through on what you promise? Do you have a guarantee? Something that says, wow, that's a no-brainer. Here's my credit card. I can't lose here. A little challenging in the shed industry, but it's possible. Okay, and then the 3-year picture. You get those pieces in place, and the next question you ask, let's step back now and look 3 years into the future. Here's where we want to be 10 years out. 3 years from now, what might be our revenue, our profits, how many people might we have in the company, and what are some snapshots? 6 stores, 3 stores, 2 manufacturing facilities. What's it look like? And you just list enough of it that everybody around the table, and then everybody in your company says, well, I can see that in my mind's eye. And as soon as your team is able to visualize where you're going, the chance that you'll actually get there, just 10x's. Because they have a vision for where you're headed. It's a snapshot you can see in your mind's eye. Then down to the bottom of the page, all that stuff we call vision. And you can see it's kind of visual, high level. There's no kind of strategy, no plans how we get there. The bottom half of the page now is about getting traction. What actually are you going to do in the next 12 months? How much revenue are you going to drive through your company? What are the profits going to be? What kind of measurables? Maybe how many units are you going to sell? It's a good one for the shed industry. And what are some of the goals? Now, these are not just snapshots and pictures, they're goals. They're SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely. You put them down so that you get at the end of the year, your leadership team or your company's at the Christmas banquet, and you say, this was our goal. Everybody knows whether or not it was done because it was so crystal clear. Okay, and let me just give you a snapshot. You are at your Christmas party, the end of next year. You've put this work in. You've told them where you're going. You told them what your revenue is going to be, what your profits are going to be, how many sheds you're going to produce, what some of these goals are. And then you simply read this off to them, say, here's what we set out to do. And then you say, and here's what we accomplished. Scorecard. How's that feel? Explains bonuses. Okay, you don't have to come up with a whole bunch of narrative. There's the data, okay? And there's a bunch of clarity. Okay, and if you read Patrick Lencioni's 4 Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive, they're all about clarity. Get that 1-year plan crystal clear. But you know, most of us lose sight of a 1-year plan, and we kind of falter. So EOS goes into a 90-day meeting rhythm. Every 90 days, you step up, come out for air, put a quarterly plan together. Here are our priorities for this quarter. And we break down the revenue to the quarter, profits to the quarter, measurables to the quarter. Because the human psychology works in about a 90-day cycle, naturally. And then you go back to work trying to get those things done. Pop up for air after 90 days. Assess what you did versus what you said you were going to do. Give it a quick grade. Put a plan together for the next quarter. And eventually you start getting good at predicting and working your plan. Company starts strengthening. You start getting traction. But it's not only that. We've got this funny one on the end. And actually, this is one of my favorites. And this is the piece, one of the pieces I was missing in business. All the issues in the company lived in my head. I had no place to put them out in front of the team. The issues list is a place where good ideas and problems are documented. And you look at them all the time, and with your leadership team, you decide every week which of these are a priority for the next 7 days. You can't do everything in 7 days. So every week you have to decide, what's our priority this week? What's our priority this week? Some of these you'll move off to the long term. Say, we want to get to this someday. It's not going to happen this year. And there's a long-term issues list where those things go to live. They're not dependent on living in your head. You can go to sleep at night because you've offloaded your company issues. If you walk out of here and only implement one thing, have an active, functioning issues list everywhere in the company where those issues roll together, and everybody knows what they are, and you choose from those to prioritize your business execution plan. That's traction. 8 questions, and of course, until these 8 questions and your answers to them are shared by everyone in the company, you're not going to gain traction. Get crystal clear on these 8 questions and have a meeting rhythm that shares it so that everybody in the company knows exactly where you're going. Now your vision component is 100% strong. Okay, never get it quite perfect, but you get 80% there, you get 60% there. Magic starts happening in your business. Okay, second component is the people component. And the people component, again, can be one of the most challenging, and I'm hearing that across multiple industries across the country, hiring good people. Nobody wants to work, nobody has XYZ, and usually they're talking about the company core values. They can't find people aligned with company core values. And so EOS uses these 2 terms, right people and right seats. And the right people, we have a very simple process that once you decide on your core values, they simply go into the people analyzer. Okay, across the top. You put the names of your employees down the side. And you have a very simple way of assessing them. The employee assesses themselves every quarter, their manager assesses them every quarter. And you sit down and have a quarterly conversation and just compare results. And if something's different, somebody says, I almost always live this way, and their boss says you almost never live this way, it's a conversation opportunity. But once the core values are clear, often there's not a lot of discrepancy. The employee will say, hey, I really struggle with this one. The boss says, yeah, I've noticed. How can we help you? Okay, but you've got your core values crystal clear. And everybody does this simple little rating process. And it's so simple. It's plus, almost always, minus, almost never, plus, minus, sometimes. Nobody's always something and never something. Okay, we're usually in the muddy middle somewhere. But which way are they tilted? But you've got to have your core values crystal clear. They have to understand what they are and what they look like in your company. And then you set a bar. And people are either above the bar or below the bar. If they're below the bar, you tell them, you know, you're below the bar. And that has a negative impact on your culture. As an implementer, the companies I work with, you have employees below the bar, you have leaders below the bar. If you don't deal with those issues quickly, they're going to be a culture drain on your company. And the destruction of your culture often is the fastest pathway to ruin. And sometimes it's simply one bad egg. And shocking, they may be the best performer in your company. Okay, and they know they are, and they think you can't do it without them, and so they're jerks. Arrogant jerks. And that's just one way of ruining a culture. But you'll be surprised. And let me tell you now, I have seen this over and over and over in my own businesses and leadership and in the companies I coach. They let that person go. Or they call them out such black and white on the core values issues that they just steam off in a huff, which is usually what happens. And guess what happens? The rest of the sales department all of a sudden, woof! Company never misses a beat. The guy on the factory floor, he's gone, and everybody else steps up, and the performance of the factory goes whoosh. Because guess what? Everybody knows, and everybody's being negatively impacted by that person that's not living your core values. And it's taking an emotional toll on the culture of your company. You provide leadership, say, no, we're committed to this culture. And you have a high-performing company that everybody loves to go to work in. Okay, and often the leaders are the last people to be honest about it. And so what happens next is you start losing good people because you won't deal with the bad. And I'm just telling you, this is, I think, roughly represents 80% of all businesses' issues right here. And people say, I don't want to get rid of them because I can't find other people. Well, guess what? If you clean up your culture and you can identify what your culture is, the kind you're building, and you advertise for people who have these values, they come running because they share the values. They want to be part of a culture that is actually like that. So I think the numbers are somewhere around, Harvard Business Review, somewhere around 60% of America's workforce today is actively looking for alternative employment. What's that mean? It means there are plenty of people to hire. Get the message right and get in front of them. Committed to a healthy culture, you can load up with top talent in 2023. I'm just telling you, it's happening. And you might as well be on the bandwagon. But it takes gutsy, bold leadership. Right Seats simply says, we look at the structure of the company, what the roles, what the responsibilities, the functions a person holds, and what their 5 key roles are, and we get people who get it, want it, and have the capacity for it. We have a clear kind of accountability structure, accountability chart in the organization. People know where they belong. They know what their job is. And they have their function listed. We don't use titles typically. Titles kind of trigger egos. Are you responsible for sales and marketing? Are you responsible for operations? Responsible for accounting? Are you responsible to integrate this whole company? Make everything function? What's your function? And then if you need to print a business card for the public world, put on whatever makes you happy. Director of Sales, VP of Sales and Marketing. Hey, fine. Put it on there and go out and have fun. Inside, this is what you're responsible for. If you don't deliver results on this, goodbye. It's about functions and roles. Okay, and it's not about being an ornery jerk. It's about creating kind of clarity that brings accountability all the way through the organization. And people who know what they're responsible for, deliver on what they're responsible for, know when they're successful, are your happiest employees. Because they're winning, and they know they're winning, and you tell them they're winning. Two kinds of people issues. Right person in the wrong seat. They fit your core values, they're lousy at their job. Okay, and if you have a lot of employees, there may be another job in the company. You can move them over, and they can be good at their job and fit your culture well. But if they fit your culture well, but there's no job in the company they can be successful at, and you keep them on, do you know you're kind of a welfare service? You're not actually doing them a favor. Serve them well by helping them find a job somewhere they can succeed at. Okay, you have to generate profits. Where you're going down the history books. It's being clear and being kind. And then there are the wrong person, right seats. They are really, really good at their job. They're your top salesman, your top builder, your best delivery guy, but they don't fit your core values. And if they can't come up to speed, you've got to let them go. Both of those issues have to be addressed. You need right people in the right seat to be successful as a growing company and begin to break through the ceilings that you have. Okay, a little faster speed, but that's right people, right seats, 100% strong in the people component. Now data. Someone said, if we have data, let's look at the data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. Okay, and if you're the boss, you get to have the opinion, and you get to go with your opinion. The reality is your opinion is going to be wrong sometimes, which is why the data, the measurables you have in your business matter so much. In the EOS model, we talk about this in two ways. The first is the company scorecard. You're an owner, you long to be on vacation for 4 weeks out of the year, 6 weeks out of the year, 10 weeks out of the year, and if you get the scorecard right, you can picture yourself on a desert island, and a courier pigeon flies in every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and you meet him, at the edge of the beach, and you've got this little sheet of paper with about 6 to 10 numbers on it, and you have 5 minutes to write a note back to your head of operations. That scorecard gives you the pulse of the company every 7 days, and you're able to make decisions on it. So this scorecard typically looks something like this. You have a list of measurables. You have a goal, a weekly goal for those measurables. And then you have a person who's accountable for that measurable. Somebody owns it, and everybody in the company knows who owns it. And then you keep a 13-week rolling scorecard. The course of any week, you've got 13 weeks of history, and you can see where you're running. For your revenue targets, for your things that are coming in, and for the sales side, how many leads have you got in? How many of those leads get converted to quotes? How many quotes are getting converted to deals? And then you'll break that down further inside the sales department for each individual sales rep. Quickly snuffs out the guys who are doing well and the guys who aren't doing well. You have opportunity for cross-teaching, clear metrics, what's going on. And this brings enormous clarity for week-to-week decisions. P&Ls are great, but they're historical documents. Okay, and many of our companies in the industry don't know how much money they made until they get their tax returns filed. Okay, that's a long time to figure out if you need to raise prices or adjust your strategy. That's a long time to wait. The improvement cycle gets really long. Okay, and that's not healthy. This, you get the scorecard right, 5-minute scan, you say, hey, double the number of Google ads we've got going. See what happens next week. You can make decisions. Make decisions. You're leading, running the company. Okay, and there are many different scorecard measurables. These are just some that I see in the shed industry, and I also find that every company has their own unique space at any moment in time. What matters to us right now, because of the issues we're going through, move it onto the scorecard so that you've got data right in front of you every week at your weekly meeting, and you know exactly where you're headed. So what do you need to know from your desert island to know how the company's doing? Okay, get it on a sheet. Get it down with great clarity. And then measurables, ultimately, everybody in the company has a measurable. I need to produce X number of dollars worth of sheds per man hour. I need to sell X number of dollars per week. I need to ship X number of units per week. What are the numbers? And I know whether or not I'm contributing, carrying my weight in this company to help us achieve the vision that has been laid out. That's what 100% strong looks like in the data component. And now issues. If your vision is crystal clear and shared by everybody in the company, you've got all right people in right seats, and every one of those people is tracked on a scorecard with measurables. Guess what suddenly starts showing up? With great clarity, I might say. Issues. You get all kinds of issues start coming out of the woodwork. And you're able to actually say, oh, look at this. And you start writing down the issues. Start documenting the issues. Sometimes they're process issues, sometimes they're people issues, sometimes they're economic issues, sometimes they're, you never know what the issue is going to be, but you start seeing things and you just start populating the issues list. And you see, I see healthy companies, 50 things on the issues list. Healthy companies. Incidentally, I see unhealthy companies with 3 things on the issues list. And what's the difference? They don't have enough clarity anywhere to be able to identify what the issues are. That's why you've got to get the vision crystal clear first. Get right people in right seats, clear accountability structure and charts so that you know what the metrics are, how this company ought to be performing. And then if you've got the right people, they're going to talk about what's wrong. They're going to get the issues up. Stuff really starts showing up. So the issues list becomes a critical piece, and then in EOS, the language we use is we IDS issues. Okay, and IDSing issues is just an approach to solving issues. Very simple, it's like this. IDS stands for identify. Somebody will put an issue down and you say, I have no idea what that means. You get in the meeting, say, give me one sentence about this issue. What is it actually? And people start asking clarifying questions until they dig, and understand the issue. And then you discuss the issue. So what's the problem? What's the possible solution? And you discuss it briefly till you have a solve. And that solve in the EOS process typically results in a to-do for somebody in the discussion that can be done in 7 days. They go out and the to-do becomes to-done and you maintain traction. Now, you have this working issues list. Most people, most companies, most leadership teams, what they do with issues is they discuss them this week, they discuss them next week, they discuss them next month, they discuss them next quarter, they discuss them next year. And guess what? 5 years from now, they're still discussing the same issue. You've got to pick the right issues. So the process is always identify the top 3 issues. You've got this long list, you can't solve them all. What are the most critical for the next 7 days? Identify number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, then you go to work on number 1. You identify what the true issue is. Here's where you need to spend most time. Dig, to be sure you've got the issue at its core. A brief discussion. No politics. If you make your case twice, you're politicking. Second time was for effect. First time was for communication. Okay? Eliminates politics from your leadership team meetings. You come up with a solution. Once the issue is identified, you can have a solution. And then you take that one off the issues list because you've got a to-do that's going to achieve your goal. You go to number 2. Same thing. Number 3, same thing. Until your meeting time is up. And the others will be living there next week when you get back. Okay? They're not going anywhere. You'll be there to look them in the eyes. So, a clear issues list, a good issue solving process, 100% strong in the issues component, which leads us to the process component. Every company has some core processes. These core processes must be documented. And again, most companies have a people process. How do you hire people, manage people, pay people? What are the benefits? What are the non-benefits? Get clarity on the people process. There's a marketing process, sales process, all sorts of processes. Usually distribution, install in our industry, customer service, accounting. All these have processes. EOS takes a document and simplify processes. Again, not a 170-page process manual that nobody ever looks at, but we recommend that you document the 20% of a process that gets 80% of the work done. Okay, and then if you have right people in right seats, they humanize the rest of it. And it's a very successful way of a clear process, but simple. You've got to have people who still understand it, and they go make it happen. But you get these processes documented, how you as a company do it, how you as leaders want it done. Suddenly you've got a tool here for scaling. You can open a new store, you can hire a new salesperson. You've got a process to bring the person in. You've got a sales process by which they're going to work. You train them to the process. You hold them accountable to the process. You manage them to the process. They have their measurables to know whether they're being successful. You're off to the races. And you can do that 10 times in a week if you want to. You can do 10 in a day if you want to, if that's the scale, if you've got clarity on the processes. And I can't tell you for how many years I designed the process every time I hired somebody. That's a waste of energy. You know, what was I worth at that time? Probably $200, $250 an hour? And I'm designing a process every time? That's somebody I could have paid $15 an hour to come in and write the process. Watch me do it one time, write the process, and somebody else in the company could have done it every time after that. Okay, and some of us, especially company founders, are allergic to processes. Just allergic to them. They'll set you free. I'm just telling you. They'll absolutely set you free and give you a platform on which you can scale and grow. Systemize the predictable so you can humanize the exceptional. People don't know they're part of a process. They're working with a human, and that's the goal. So processes must be documented, and they have to be followed by all. If you've got them documented and nobody does them, what's the benefit? Okay, you probably have some chaos in the company. Okay, and then you have a followed by all checklist. Simply, are they trained? Are we measuring? Are we leading, managing, and holding them accountable? And we update the process when it's not working. You hire a star employee, and suddenly their performance skyrockets, and they say, what in this process are you doing differently? And you find they have figured some little thing out. That's the human component. You add it to the process, have everybody do it. That's how you keep them up to date. Very simple. If you keep it simple, it's simple to manage and maintain. So processes documented, followed by all, 100% strong. And then how do we actually get traction? Rocks is the first component of this. It's probably one of the things EOS is known best for. Rocks simply means, and it comes from Stephen Covey's book on priorities. If you have a glass jar, you've got big rocks, you've got pebbles, you've got sand, and you've got water. If you put the water in first, then the sand, you won't have room for the rocks. Rocks are what are really your company's priorities for the next 30 days, 90 days, that are going to be essential to get you to your one-year goals. And you set those every 90 days, and every person in the leadership team, eventually people down through the company will have company priorities for the quarter that they get done. They're held accountable to get done. You announce them to the company. Here's what we're going to do this next quarter. These are our rocks. And if you consistently don't get them done, they begin to lose confidence in your leadership abilities. You're not predicting very well. You don't execute well. Well, now it's out clear. You can see what to go after and what to fix. And then the meeting pulse. Communication becomes the fluid, the hydraulic fluid in a hydraulic system. And establishing a healthy meeting pulse, but a meeting pulse that is consistent. And in the 90-day world, we have this type of meeting pulse, and one of the rules is always we meet the same day, same time, start on time, end on time, same agenda every single meeting. And the core of every one of those meetings is IDSing the issues on the issues list. And you get good at it. You do really get good at it. That's 100% strong in the issues and the traction component. Each of these 6 key components matters. And you have to start on a journey, working to strengthen each of these 6 key components. And you can get results. Some of the foundational tools here in EOS, and again, they're available in the book, they're available on EOS's website to help you get started, but they are the VTO, what you have in front of you. That's one of the foundational tools. Get clarity with your vision and your traction plan. Accountability chart, what's the structure like in your company? Does everybody know where they fit and what they're responsible for? Rocks, what are our priorities? What did we say are our priorities, and are we making them a priority? And finally, the meeting pulse and scorecard. Those are the foundational tools. Some resources for you, eosworldwide.com. There are enormous resources there, including the Traction Library. There's about 6 books now that build out EOS for small companies. There are downloadable tools and videos there. There's also a Basecamp subscription. If you get serious about launching EOS in your company, there's a subscription-based, gives you videos about how to lead your quarterly meetings, how to lead your L10s, all that sort of stuff to help you self-implement. And right now, there are roughly, it's estimated around 100,000 companies around the world running on EOS across all different industries. About 10,000 of those, 20,000 of those have been implemented with the help of an implementer. And the goal of EOS is to get this to 1 million companies in the next 5 years. This does change business owners' lives. And then there are people like me who help companies get started and get it implemented at a faster pace. Just some final thoughts. You do have a business system, you do have an operating system, and you need to figure out whether it's right, whether it's good, whether it's working. You must choose and use a system. That's how you get what you want from your business, whether it's more free time, whether it's a revenue goal, whether it's a lifestyle. That's how you get there, through a business system and running the system to clearly articulate where you're going. As one visionary in an EOS-run company a couple years in said, I've never felt so alive and in control. I own the vision for my future, the ability to share it with others and get them on board. Here's the best part. I'm only 41 years old. I can only imagine what is possible. I've got a friend who's been helping companies for 12 years with EOS. And his tagline, people ask him all the time, what do you do? And he said, you know the guys in the community who take 12-week vacations every year? They're my clients. Okay, obviously it's a punchline for him. But if that's what you want, you're going to have a good, healthy system, good, healthy business. And maybe for you it's ministry. It takes a system to get there. Real, get real. Find a simple, clear process in order to get results. Again, there's a free copy of Traction in the hallway. Take one. If you have a friend that's in business pain, take one for him too. I'm not keeping track. Just have him go out the door. There's a free chapter available here. You can scan. It'll download the first chapter immediately. And, ladies and gentlemen, 2 results. Let's strengthen the shed industry. Okay, go make it happen.